Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the screen in her small office aboard the research ship Prometheus. The last message from Eden's Gate colony played for the 15th time that morning. The voice belonged to Dr. Marcus Ford, the colony's chief botanist. "The soil samples from Sector 7 show unusual mineral deposits," Ford's voice crackled through the speakers. "We've never seen anything like this before. The plants are growing faster than our models predicted, much faster. It's almost like something in the ground is feeding them. We should probably—" The message cut off. Static filled the speakers for 3 seconds, then silence. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. She had been studying this message for 3 days now, ever since the Terran Colonial Authority asked her to investigate the communication breakdown with Eden's Gate. As one of the galaxy's leading experts on alien environments, she often helped solve problems when colonies faced unusual situations, but this felt different. Eden's Gate wasn't just any colony. It was humanity's crown jewel, home to 2.5 million people. The planet's rich soil could grow enough food to feed 12 other colonies. Without Eden's Gate, millions of people across human space would go hungry. Sarah's computer chimed with an incoming call. Admiral Marcus Webb's weathered face appeared on her screen. The old military man looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Dr. Chen," Webb said without greeting, "what's your analysis of the Eden's Gate situation?" Sarah leaned back in her chair. "Admiral, I've studied every second of that last transmission." Dr. Ford sounded surprised, maybe even excited about what they found. But there's something else in his voice. Fear, maybe. Like he realized something important just before the transmission ended. "Any theories about what caused the communication breakdown?" "That's the problem," Sarah said. "Eden's Gate uses quantum entanglement communicators. That technology has never failed, not once in over 100 years of use. The quantum link should work even if the entire planet lost power." Webb's expression darkened. "We've sent 3 messenger drones to Eden's Gate. None have returned." "That's never happened before either." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Messenger drones were nearly indestructible. They were designed to survive asteroid impacts and solar flares. Losing one was unusual. Losing 3 was impossible. "Admiral, how long has it been since the last communication?" 17 days, Webb replied. "The Colonial Authority is getting nervous. Eden's Gate was supposed to ship a massive food harvest to the outer colonies next week. If that doesn't happen, we'll have supply problems within a month." Sarah nodded. She understood the bigger picture. Eden's Gate wasn't just important for its food production. The colony sat at a crucial hyperspace junction. Ships traveling to 6 different star systems had to pass through Eden's Gate space. If something had happened to the colony, it could affect all of human expansion into that region. "I need to see that planet," Sarah said. "Whatever happened there, I can't figure it out from a 3-second message." "I was hoping you'd say that," Webb replied. "I'm assembling a fast reconnaissance team. Captain Elena Vasquez will lead the mission. Her ship, the Nighthawk, is the fastest in the fleet. You'll reach Eden's Gate in 4 days." Sarah began packing her equipment immediately. As a xenoarchaeologist, she specialized in studying alien civilizations and environments. She had explored dozens of dead worlds, uncovered ancient alien cities, and solved mysteries that had puzzled scientists for decades. But she had never investigated the disappearance of an entire human colony. The Nighthawk was a sleek military scout ship designed for speed and stealth. Captain Vasquez was a woman in her 40s with short black hair and intense brown eyes. She had served in the Terran Navy for 20 years and had seen action in several border conflicts with hostile alien species. "Dr. Chen," Vasquez said as they prepared to depart, "I've read your file. You've dealt with dangerous alien environments before, but I want you to understand something. We don't know what we're flying into. Whatever happened to Eden's Gate, it was powerful enough to silence 2.5 million people overnight." "I understand the risks, Captain," Sarah replied, "but we need answers, and right now, I'm probably humanity's best chance of finding them." The 4-day journey to Eden's Gate passed slowly. Sarah spent most of her time studying everything known about the planet. Eden's Gate was a garden world with perfect conditions for human life. The atmosphere was clean, the gravity was comfortable, and the soil was incredibly fertile. The planet had been surveyed 3 times before colonization, and no signs of intelligent life had been found. But as Sarah read the geological surveys, something bothered her. The planet's mineral composition was unusual. Deep scans showed vast cave systems extending far below the surface. The surveyors had noted these caves but hadn't explored them. They were too deep and too dangerous for the survey equipment of that time. On the 3rd day of the journey, Captain Vasquez received an urgent message from Admiral Webb. She called Sarah to the bridge immediately. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," Vasquez said. Her face was pale. On the main screen was a live video feed from a rescue ship near the edge of Eden's Gate space. They had found an escape pod drifting in the darkness between stars. The pod was badly damaged, its hull scarred by something that looked like acid burns. "There's someone alive inside," Vasquez said. "Barely alive, but breathing." Sarah watched as the rescue team opened the pod. Inside was a man in his 30s, unconscious and covered in strange burns. His colonial authority uniform identified him as Dr. James Morrison, a geologist from Eden's Gate. The rescue team brought Morrison aboard their ship and began emergency medical treatment. When he finally regained consciousness 12 hours later, his first words made Sarah's blood run cold. "The Devourers," Morrison whispered through cracked lips. "They came from below the soil. We never saw them coming. They took everyone except me." The medical team sedated Morrison before he could say more, but his words had already spread through the rescue ship's crew and back to Admiral Webb's headquarters. Devourers and below the soil. These phrases would haunt Sarah for the rest of the journey to Eden's Gate. When the Nighthawk finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Eden's Gate system, Sarah felt her heart sink. The planet looked normal from space, green and blue and beautiful. But there were no ships in orbit, no space stations, no signs of the busy space traffic that should surround a major colony world. "Scanning for life signs," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "I'm detecting nothing. No human life signs on the surface." "That's impossible," Vasquez said. 2.5 million people don't just disappear. But as the Nighthawk moved closer to the planet, the truth became undeniable. The orbital platforms were empty and drifting. The communication satellites were silent. The planet that had been humanity's greatest success story had become a tomb. Sarah stared at the beautiful world below and thought about Dr. Morrison's terrified words. Something had emerged from beneath Eden's Gate's fertile soil. Something that called itself the Devourers, and in a matter of days, maybe hours, they had erased an entire human civilization. "Captain," Sarah said quietly, "we need to get down there. Whatever happened to those people, the answers are on that planet." Vasquez nodded grimly. "Prepare for planetary approach, and may God help us all." The Nighthawk landed in the main plaza of New Geneva, Eden's Gate's capital city. Sarah Chen stepped out of the ship wearing a full environmental suit, even though the atmosphere readings showed the air was safe to breathe. Something about the silence made her want every protection she could get. The city looked perfect, too perfect. The buildings stood undamaged, their windows clean and unbroken. Gardens bloomed with flowers in full color. Automated systems still watered the plants and cleaned the streets. But there were no people anywhere. Captain Vasquez led a team of 6 Marines through the empty streets. Their boots echoed off the buildings as they moved toward the colony's administrative center. Sarah followed close behind, her scientific instruments scanning everything around them. "This is wrong," muttered Sergeant Rodriguez, one of the Marines. "Where are the bodies? Where are the signs of struggle? It looks like everyone just walked away." Sarah checked her readings again. The instruments detected no traces of chemical. Weapons, no radiation, no biological contamination. Whatever had happened here, it hadn't involved conventional warfare. They reached the administrative building and found the doors standing open. Inside, computer terminals still glowed with active displays. Coffee cups sat on desks, still half full. A child's toy lay on the floor near the reception area, as if dropped mid-play. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications room. "You need to see this." The communications center looked like someone had left in the middle of sending a message. Multiple screens showed half-finished reports and data transfers. But one screen caught Sarah's attention immediately. It displayed a geological survey map of the area around New Geneva, with dozens of red warning markers scattered across it. "These markers weren't in the original city plans," Sarah said, studying the map. "Someone added them recently. Look at the dates. They're all from the last month before the colony went silent." Captain Vasquez examined the markers more closely. "They're all marking underground anomalies. Caves, tunnels, something below the surface." Sarah pulled up the geological data for each marker. What she found made her stomach turn. Every marker showed the same thing: massive tunnel systems extending deep into the planet's crust. Tunnels that hadn't existed 6 months ago. "Captain, we need to get Dr. Morrison's full testimony," Sarah said. "He said they came from below, the soil." I think he meant it literally. They spent the rest of the day exploring the empty city. Every building told the same story. Normal life interrupted suddenly. Meals left cooking on stoves. Children's homework scattered on kitchen tables. Beds with sheets still warm to the touch, as if people had just gotten up. But as they explored, Sarah began noticing other details. Scratch marks on some walls, too deep and too regular to be random damage. Strange holes in the ground, perfectly circular and extending straight down beyond the reach of their lights. And most disturbing of all, a sweet smell in the air that reminded her of flowers, but made her feel slightly sick. On the second day, they expanded their search to the farmlands outside the city. This was where Eden's Gate had grown the food that fed millions of people across human space. The crops still grew in perfect rows, but something was wrong with them. "Dr. Chen," called Marine Corporal Kim from across a wheat field. "You need to see this." Sarah ran to where Kim was standing. At his feet was a hole in the ground about 3 meters wide. The edges were smooth, as if something had melted the earth rather than digging through it. The hole angled down into darkness. "There are dozens of them," Kim said, pointing across the field. "Maybe hundreds. They're everywhere." Sarah activated her suit's headlamp and peered down into the hole. The light revealed smooth walls that curved away into the depths. But what caught her attention were the marks on the walls, spiral patterns that looked almost like writing. "These holes are recent," Sarah said. "The soil analysis shows they were created within the last month. Something came up through here, something big enough to create tunnels 3 meters wide." Captain Vasquez called for a full orbital scan of the planet. What the scanners revealed changed everything they thought they knew about Eden's Gate. The tunnel systems extended across the entire planet like a vast underground highway network. Some tunnels were 10 meters wide, others were large enough to drive a truck through, and they all connected to massive cavern systems deep in the planet's core. "Captain," Sarah said, studying the scan results, "this isn't random digging. This is engineering. Someone built this tunnel network. Someone with technology we don't understand." That evening, they finally received the full medical report on Dr. Morrison. The doctors had stabilized his condition and were able to interview him properly. Admiral Webb transmitted the interview to the Nighthawk. Morrison's face appeared on the screen, pale and haunted. His voice shook as he spoke. "It started about 6 weeks ago," Morrison said. "We noticed unusual seismic activity, small earthquakes, nothing dangerous. But they were too regular, too planned, like something was moving underground." Then the plants started growing faster, much faster. The farmers were excited at first. Bigger crops meant more food for everyone, but the plants looked wrong. Too green, too perfect, and they smelled different. Morrison paused, his hands shaking. The animals noticed first. All the domestic animals, dogs, cats, livestock, they became nervous. They wouldn't go near certain areas of the city. Then they started disappearing. About 3 weeks ago, we found the first tunnel. The mayor wanted to send a team down to investigate, but I argued against it. Something about those tunnels felt wrong. The air coming up from them smelled like death and flowers mixed together. Sarah felt her blood chill. That was the same sweet smell she had noticed in the city. The attack started 2 weeks ago, Morrison continued. At night, things would come up from the tunnels. We never got a good look at them. They moved too fast, and they seemed to blend into the shadows. But they were big, much bigger than humans. They didn't kill people right away. They took them, alive. We found drag marks leading to the tunnel entrances, but no bodies. The things were collecting us. Morrison's voice broke. I was in the geology lab when the final attack came. They hit the entire city at once, coming up, from tunnels under every building. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They moved like they were connected, like they shared one mind. I hid in the lab's emergency shelter. I could hear people screaming outside, but the sounds faded quickly, too quickly. When I finally came out 12 hours later, the city was empty. Everyone was gone. Every single person. Morrison looked directly into the camera. These things, these devourers, they've been living under our feet for who knows how long. We built our colony right on top of their territory, and now they're awake. Sarah studied the tunnel scans again, seeing them in a new light. The network didn't just cover Eden's Gate. Her computer analysis showed connection points that extended toward other star systems, other human colonies. Captain, she said quietly, I don't think Eden's Gate was random. I think we've stumbled onto something much bigger. This tunnel network. It extends beyond this planet. These devourers, they might have access to other worlds, other human settlements. Vasquez stared at the scan results. Are you saying this could happen to other colonies? Sarah nodded grimly. I'm saying it might already be happening, and we may be the only ones who know. As if summoned by her words, the ship's proximity alarms began screaming. Something was rising from the planet's surface, something big enough to show up on their scanners from orbit. Through the viewports, they could see shapes emerging from the tunnel openings scattered across the landscape. Dark forms that moved with purpose and intelligence. The devourers were awake, and they knew the humans had returned. Admiral Marcus Webb stood before the emergency session of the Terran High Command, the most powerful military and political leaders in human space. The holographic display behind him showed the tunnel network beneath Eden's Gate in all its terrifying complexity. Representatives from 57 colonies and 12 corporate governments watched in stunned silence. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. Everything we thought we knew about our expansion into this region of the galaxy was wrong. The data from Dr. Chen and Captain Vasquez had arrived just 6 hours ago. Since then, Webb and his staff had worked frantically to analyze the implications. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The species Dr. Morrison called. The Devourers appear to be an ancient civilization that has been dormant beneath the surface of multiple worlds, Webb continued. Our analysis suggests they may have been sleeping for thousands, possibly millions of years. Fleet Admiral Jiang Wei leaned forward in her chair. She commanded the largest battle fleet in human space and had fought in more alien conflicts than any other living officer. Admiral Webb, are you telling us that we've been building colonies on top of hostile alien cities? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Webb replied. But it's worse than that. The tunnel networks don't just exist under Eden's Gate. Our deep space sensors have detected similar seismic patterns near 17 other human colonies. The room erupted in worried conversations. Representatives began calling their home worlds, demanding emergency reports on underground activity. Corporate executives calculated the economic impact of losing multiple colonies at once. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chaos as she joined the meeting via holographic link from the Nighthawk. "The Devourers aren't just randomly hostile," she said. "They appear to view surface life as contamination. From what we've observed, they're trying to cleanse their territory of what they see as an infection. Us." Secretary of Colonial Affairs Maria Santos stood up, her face pale. "Dr. Chen, you said 17 colonies show similar patterns. Can you be more specific about which ones?" Sarah consulted her data pad. "New Brisbane, Harmony Station, Terra Verde, Second Chance, and 13 others. All colonies established in the last 15 years. All built on worlds with rich soil and extensive underground cave systems." "My God," whispered Representative Park from the Martian delegation. "That's over." 30 million people. Fleet Admiral Zhang spoke again. "What are you recommending, Admiral Webb? Evacuation? We don't have enough ships to move 30 million people quickly." Webb had been dreading this question. The truth was brutal, but it had to be said. "Admiral Zhang, evacuation isn't an option. Our analysis indicates the Devourers have been manipulating our expansion for decades. They've been subtly guiding us toward resource-rich worlds that sit above their tunnel networks." He activated another display showing the shipping routes between human colonies. "Look at the pattern. Every colony beyond the Sol system is connected to this network. If the Devourers can move through their tunnels faster than our ships can travel through space, evacuation becomes impossible. They would reach our evacuation points before we could get everyone out." The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Humanity had spread across dozens of star systems, believing they were exploring empty space. Instead, they had been walking into a trap that had been set before their species had even left Earth. Corporate Representative Williams from the Titan Mining Consortium stood up angrily. "This is impossible. Our surveys showed no signs of intelligent life on any of these worlds. How could we have missed entire underground civilizations?" Dr. Chen answered from her remote location. "Because they were sleeping. The Devourers appear to enter extremely long hibernation cycles. Our surveys would have detected active civilizations, but dormant ones using biological technology. Our sensors weren't designed for that." "Biological technology?" asked Secretary Santos. "The tunnel. Walls show signs of being grown rather than dug," Sarah explained. "The Devourers seem to use living systems for everything. Transportation, construction, maybe even their weapons. It's technology based on biology rather than metals and electronics." Admiral Webb stepped forward again. "This brings me to my recommendation. We cannot evacuate. We cannot negotiate with a species that views our existence as contamination. We have only one option left." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he was about to say, but no one wanted to hear it. "We mobilize everything," Webb said. "Every combat-capable vessel in human space. Military ships, converted civilian craft, orbital defense platforms, experimental prototypes. Everything that can mount a weapon and survive hyperspace transit. Fleet." Admiral Zhang stared at him. "Marcus, you're talking about the largest military mobilization in human history. The economic impact alone would cripple dozens of colonies." "The alternative is extinction," Webb replied bluntly. "The Devourers aren't going to stop with the colonies they've already taken. They're going to keep expanding until they've cleansed their entire territory of human contamination. That territory appears to include every world we've colonized outside the Sol system." President Chen of the Earth Federation spoke for the first time. "Admiral Webb, what you're proposing has never been done before. Getting every human faction to cooperate on a single military effort. The logistical challenges alone are staggering." "Madam President, We've analyzed the Devourer's expansion patterns. If we don't stop them at Eden's Gate, they'll reach the outer colonies within 6 months. The core worlds within 2 years. This isn't about politics or economics anymore. This is about the survival of our species. Representative Martinez from the Centauri Alliance raised his hand. What makes you think we can succeed? These Devourers destroyed an entire colony in a matter of hours. They have technology we don't understand, numbers we can't estimate, and they know the terrain better than we ever will. Webb had been hoping someone would ask this question. Because they made one critical mistake. They've been hiding underground for so long that they've forgotten how surface dwellers fight. They expect us to be easy prey like the colonists they've been harvesting. They don't know about human stubbornness. More importantly, he continued, Dr. Chen's analysis suggests their biological technology has weaknesses. Systems that grow and adapt are also systems that can be poisoned, infected, or turned against themselves. We have weapons they've never encountered before. Dr. Chen added from her remote link, I've been studying the tunnel samples we collected. The Devourer's technology appears to be based on quantum biological processes. If we can disrupt those processes, we might be able to damage their entire network at once. Fleet Admiral Zhang was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. If we're going to do this, we need to do it fast. How long do you need to assemble? This fleet? 6 weeks, Webb replied. Maybe 5 if everyone cooperates. The vote was unanimous, though many representatives looked sick as they cast their ballots. For the first time in human history, every nation, corporation, and colony would contribute to a single military effort. The largest fleet ever assembled by any species would gather at the Mars shipyards. As the meeting ended, President Chen approached Admiral Webb privately. Marcus, you know what you're asking, don't you? If this fails, humanity will have no military left to defend the core worlds. Webb nodded grimly. Madam President, if this fails, humanity won't need a military. There won't be anyone left to defend. Within hours of the vote, orders went out across human space. Factory ships began converting civilian vessels into warships. Research stations started mass-producing experimental weapons. Military academies began crash courses to train civilian volunteers for space combat. The largest mobilization in human history had begun. In 6 weeks, humanity would either save itself or die in the attempt. There would be no middle ground. Commander Lisa Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the massive orbital station above Mars, watching the greatest armada in human history take shape. Ships arrived every hour from across human space, each one adding to the growing swarm of vessels that now filled the space around the red planet. The sight was overwhelming. Sleek Terran Navy destroyers hung in formation next to bulky corporate freight haulers that had been hastily fitted with railguns. Martian ice miners, their hulls scarred from years of asteroid work, now bristled with torpedo launchers. Even luxury passenger liners had been converted into troop transports, their elegant curves hidden behind armor plating and weapon systems. "Status report," Rodriguez called to her staff. As the fleet's integration coordinator, she had the impossible job of making all these different ships work together as a single fighting force. 47,000 combat vessels registered and operational, reported Lieutenant Kim. 200,000 support ships. Total personnel count is just over 15 million. Rodriguez shook her head in amazement. The numbers were staggering. Earth's entire population could have fit aboard the assembled fleet with room to spare. But she knew that size alone wouldn't guarantee victory against an enemy that had been perfecting warfare for millions of years. "What about the integration problems?" she asked. Lieutenant Kim's expression darkened. "Still working on them, Commander. We have ships from 57 different colonies, each using different communication protocols, different weapon systems, even different measurement units. The Brazilian atmospheric processors use metric calculations, while the Texas mining fleet still uses imperial measurements. And the language barriers? Worse than expected. We have crews speaking Portuguese, Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, Spanish, and 12 other languages. The translation systems are struggling to keep up during combat drills. Rodriguez had been expecting these problems, but the reality was still daunting. Humanity's expansion across the galaxy had led to incredible diversity. Each colony had developed its own culture, its own way of doing things. Now they had to work together or face extinction. But as the days passed, Rodriguez began to see something remarkable happening. The diversity that seemed like a weakness was becoming a strength. Brazilian engineers helped Japanese quantum specialists solve power distribution problems. African asteroid miners taught Martian pilots new techniques for navigating dense debris fields. American military officers learned tactical approaches from Russian Space Navy veterans. The most impressive collaboration was happening in the weapon development labs. Dr. Sarah Chen had returned from Eden's Gate with samples of the Devourers, biological technology. Teams of scientists from across human space were working around the clock to find ways to exploit its weaknesses. Commander Rodriguez called Dr. Patel from the research division. "We need you to see the latest test results." Rodriguez made her way to the secure laboratory buried deep in the station. Inside, scientists from a dozen different colonies were studying fragments of the Devourer's tunnel walls. The biological material seemed to pulse with its own life, responding to light and heat in ways that conventional materials never could. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Patel explained, leading her to a sealed testing chamber. "The Devourer's technology is based on quantum-entangled biological processes. Every part of their network is connected at the molecular level." "What does that mean for our weapons?" Rodriguez asked. Dr. Chen stepped forward, holding a small device that looked like a modified terraforming tool. "It means we can turn their strength against them. These nanoscale devices were originally designed to transform planetary atmospheres. We've reprogrammed them to target the quantum frequencies that hold the Devourer's biological systems together." She activated the device and pointed it at a sample of tunnel wall material. The biological matter began to writhe and dissolve, breaking down at the molecular level. "If we can deploy enough of these devices into their tunnel network," Dr. Chen continued, "we can disrupt their entire planetary system at once. Their tunnels, their ships, maybe even their weapons would stop functioning." Rodriguez felt hope for the first time since the mobilization began. "How many of these devices can we produce?" "Every terraforming ship in the fleet can manufacture them," Dr. Patel replied. "We're talking about millions of devices, maybe tens of millions. Enough to target every Devourer installation we can find." While the scientists worked on weapons, Rodriguez focused on the massive logistical challenge of coordinating the fleet. Communication systems had to be standardized. Supply chains had to be established. Most importantly, the wildly different. Command structures had to be integrated into something resembling military order. Admiral Webb arrived from Earth to take command of the fleet 2 weeks before the scheduled departure. He looked older than Rodriguez remembered, the weight of humanity's survival clearly taking its toll. But his eyes still held the determination that had convinced the High Command to attempt this impossible mission. "Commander Rodriguez," Webb said as he toured the fleet preparations, "what's your assessment of our readiness?" "Honestly, Admiral, we're a mess. Half our ships can't communicate properly with the other half. Our weapon systems are completely incompatible. And we're asking civilian crews to fly into the worst battle in human history." Webb nodded. "And yet?" Rodriguez smiled slightly. "And yet, sir, I've never seen anything like the determination these people are showing. Every single person in this fleet knows what's at stake. They're not professional soldiers, but they're fighting for their homes, their families, their entire species. That counts for something." "More than something," Webb replied. "That's what the Devourers don't understand about humanity. They see us as disorganized, chaotic, inefficient. They're not wrong. But they don't understand that our chaos is also our strength." The final week before departure was a frenzy of activity. Ships that had never worked together ran formation drills. Crews that spoke different languages learned to coordinate attacks. Most importantly, the fleet began to develop a fighting spirit. that transcended the differences between colonies. Rodriguez watched a training exercise where a converted passenger liner was working with a military destroyer to practice combined attacks. The passenger liner's crew was made up of hotel staff, entertainers, and tour guides. 6 months ago, they had been showing tourists the wonders of the galaxy. Now they were preparing to fight for humanity's survival. "They're not soldiers," observed Lieutenant Kim, watching the same exercise. "No," Rodriguez agreed. "They're something better. They're people fighting for their home." The night before departure, Admiral Webb addressed the entire fleet. His words were broadcast to every ship, translated into every language spoken by the crews. "Tomorrow, we travel to Eden's Gate, to face an enemy that views our very existence as contamination," Webb began. "They think we're weak because we're different from each other. They think we're disorganized because we don't all think the same way. They think we're easy prey because we haven't been perfecting warfare for millions of years. They're wrong on all counts. Our differences make us unpredictable. Our diversity gives us more ways to solve problems than any single mind could imagine. And our determination to protect what we love makes us more dangerous than any perfect killing machine." The Devourers wanted to cleanse their territory of contamination. Tomorrow, we show them what happens when the contamination fights back. When the fleet finally assembled for departure, the sight was beyond anything in human history. 47,000 combat ships formed into attack formations that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Support vessels created supply, lines that looked like metal rivers flowing between the stars. The combined mass of the fleet was so enormous that their hyperspace jump created gravitational anomalies visible from 3 star systems away. When they emerged in normal space near Eden's Gate, the Devourers would know that humanity had come not as victims, but as an army. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the fleet command ship as the final jump countdown began. Around them, tens of thousands of ships prepared to leap across space to humanity's greatest battle. "All ships report ready for hyperspace transit," announced the communications officer. Admiral Webb looked out at the assembled fleet one last time. "Signal all vessels. Execute jump." The stars disappeared as humanity's greatest armada leaped toward its destiny. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace to find Eden's Gate transformed into a nightmare. The planet's surface writhed with movement as massive biological ships erupted from tunnel openings like antibodies responding to an infection. The Devourers had been waiting. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the command ship Defiance, watching the tactical displays update with enemy contacts. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of bioships swarmed around the planet, their living hulls pulsing, with an alien rhythm that made his stomach turn. "All ships, battle stations," Webb commanded. His words were transmitted across the fleet in dozens of languages, reaching crews who had never seen combat and veterans of 100 battles. "Remember, our goal is not just to win this fight. We need to break their planetary network completely." The first wave of Devourers attacked before the human fleet had finished forming battle lines. The bioships moved unlike anything human pilots had ever encountered. They flowed through space, like living creatures swimming through water, their movements coordinated with perfect precision. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the converted ice hauler Titan's Pride, watched in horror as a bioship simply phased through her defensive fire. The creature's hull seemed to shift and flow around the incoming projectiles, absorbing the damage and continuing its attack run. "All weapons, target the bioship's center mass," Santos ordered. But as her railguns fired, the bioship split into 3 smaller vessels, each one attacking from a different angle. The battle quickly became chaos. The Devourers' bioships could change shape, split apart, and even merge together during combat. Their living hulls regenerated damage faster than conventional weapons could inflict it. Worse, they seemed to share a collective intelligence, coordinating attacks across the entire battlespace with inhuman precision. But humanity's chaotic diversity began to show its value. While the Devourer's perfect coordination made them predictable, human crews improvised with reckless creativity that the enemy couldn't anticipate. Commander Rodriguez, now leading a squadron of converted civilian ships, watched as the mining vessel Deep Digger rammed directly into a bioship while deploying its full load of terraforming nanites. The bioship's living hull began dissolving from the inside out, its quantum biological processes disrupted by the nanites' targeted attack. "All vessels, you saw that," Rodriguez broadcast to her squadron. "The nanites work. Get close and deploy everything you have." Across the battlefield, human crews began adapting their tactics in real time. Fighter pilots designed for asteroid mining used their industrial cutting beams to slice through bioship hulls. Scientists reprogrammed agricultural drones to swarm enemy vessels like metallic wasps. A luxury cruise liner used its passenger evacuation pods as guided missiles, each one packed with nanite charges. Dr. Sarah Chen, aboard the research vessel Prometheus, worked frantically to analyze the bioship's quantum signatures. Every few minutes, she broadcast new frequency data to the fleet's weapons officers, helping them tune their nanite devices for maximum effectiveness. "I'm detecting a pattern in their communication network," Sarah announced over the command channel. "The bioships are all connected to something deep in the planet's core. If we can disrupt that central node, we might be able to disable their coordination." Admiral Webb studied the tactical situation. The human fleet was holding its own, but barely. They were losing ships faster than they could destroy the bioships, and more Devourers continued to emerge from the planet's surface. "All bomber squadrons, new target," Webb commanded. "Forget the bioships. We're going after the planet itself." The bomber attack was humanity at its most reckless and creative. Converted freight haulers loaded with nanite charges dove through swarms of defending bioships. Mining vessels used their heavy drilling equipment to punch through the planet's crust. Even passenger liners contributed, using their powerful engines to ram their way into the tunnel openings. Captain Elena Vasquez, commanding the Nighthawk, led the deepest penetration into the Devourer's underground network. Her ship, damaged and burning, fought its way through living tunnel walls that tried to close around them like a throat swallowing food. Deploying full nanite payload, Vasquez reported as her ship reached a massive underground chamber. The space was filled with pulsing organic structures that looked like a combination of machinery and nervous system. "This looks like their central command center." The nanites spread through the chamber like a deadly mist, targeting the quantum frequencies that held the Devourer's biological technology together. The effect was immediate and devastating. The organic command structures began to dissolve, their connections severing one by one. On the surface, the effect rippled outward like a shockwave. Bioships that had been moving with perfect coordination suddenly began operating independently. Some stopped responding to commands entirely. Others turned on each other as their shared communication network collapsed, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The Devourers, realizing their network was collapsing, launched a final desperate assault. Every bioship in the system converged on the human fleet at once, sacrificing themselves in kamikaze attacks that carved through human formations like a scythe through wheat. The Defiance itself was caught in the assault. A massive bioship, larger than any they had seen before, rammed directly into the command vessel's hull. Admiral Webb felt the deck buckle beneath his feet as the enemy vessel's living hull tried to merge with his ship's metal structure. "All hands, abandon ship," Webb ordered, but he remained on the bridge, coordinating the fleet's final assault even as his ship died around him. Commander Rodriguez, aboard the damaged cruiser New Hope, took over fleet command as the battle reached its climax. The human nanites had spread throughout the Devourer's planetary network, disrupting their quantum biological processes on a massive scale. Entire sections of the tunnel system were collapsing, and the remaining bioships were losing cohesion. "All ships, final push," Rodriguez commanded. "Deploy every nanite device we have left. Let's finish this." The last phase of the battle was less a fight than an extermination. The human nanites, designed to terraform entire planets, proved devastatingly effective against the Devourer's biological technology. The alien network that had taken millions of years to grow was unraveling in a matter of hours. When the shooting finally stopped, the space around Eden's Gate was filled with debris. Broken bioships drifted like dead whales, their living hulls finally still. Human vessels, many barely functional, limped through the wreckage searching for survivors. The cost had been staggering. Nearly 60% of the human fleet was destroyed or severely damaged. 8 million people were dead, including Admiral, Webb, and thousands of other heroes who had given their lives to save their species. But humanity had won. The Devourer's galactic network was broken, their species reduced to scattered survivors fleeing to distant stars. More importantly, the quantum biological processes that powered their technology had been permanently disrupted. They would not be able to rebuild their empire for thousands of years, if ever. 6 months after the battle, Commander Rodriguez, now promoted to Admiral, stood in the rebuilt capital of Eden's Gate. The colony was thriving again, its new buildings, grown using adapted Devourer biotechnology that human scientists had learned to control. The memorial wall listed 8 million names, each one representing a person who had died to preserve humanity's future. Children played in gardens grown with biotechnology that had once threatened to destroy their species. The irony was not lost on anyone. "Admiral Rodriguez," called Dr. Sarah Chen, approaching with a data pad full of research notes. "The preliminary analysis of the Devourer technology is complete. The applications are beyond anything we imagined. Faster than light travel without hyperspace, biological manufacturing that can grow anything we need, even the potential for extending human lifespan." Rodriguez nodded, but her attention remained on the memorial wall. 8 million people died to give us access to this technology. I hope we're worthy of their sacrifice. "We proved we were worthy during the battle," Sarah replied. "The Devourers thought we were just contamination to be cleansed. They had perfect technology, perfect coordination, perfect unity. But they didn't understand the one thing that makes humanity special." "What's that?" Sarah gestured toward the rebuilt city, where people from dozens of different colonies worked together to build something new. "We're stronger because we're different. Our chaos, our diversity, our stubborn refusal to give up, that's what saved us." Rodriguez looked up at the sky, where human ships now patrolled the space that had once been ruled by an ancient alien empire. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. More than survived. They had evolved. The species that emerged from the Battle of Eden's Gate was fundamentally changed. They had learned that the galaxy was not empty, that ancient powers slept beneath seemingly innocent worlds, and that survival sometimes required the complete mobilization of an entire civilization. But they had also learned that their greatest weakness, their inability to agree on anything, was also their greatest strength. When united by necessity, humanity's diversity made them unpredictable, creative, and ultimately unstoppable.